Good afternoon, everyone. Today I am joined by Tony Stephan, which you will have read about in the book, and Scott Malone. He is also co-founder of one of the companies that is talked about in this book on the products for the micronutrients, the broad spectrum micronutrients. So I'm joined by both of them today. Because you've read in the introduction that this book actually was written because of the Stephan family, and we have Tony here. It's because of what he did to actually begin this research and find solutions, but it's because of his daughter Autumn and what she was taking that co-author, Dr. Bonnie Kaplan, had met them in 1996. So what we're discussing is this book called The Better Brain, written by Dr. Julia Ruckledge and Dr. Bonnie Kaplan. And today we're going to talk to Tony. And Tony, because of you and your family and Dr. Bonnie being intrigued, but also shocked at how micronutrients actually made such an astounding impact in your daughter Autumn, that's where this book started. So, but it didn't start for you there. It didn't start for you there. So I want people to meet you, and I want to share with our UK audience, but also our global audience, your story, because I think you telling us before your meeting with Dr. Bonnie and the data you showed her, it's important for people to understand your life experiences. So share those with everybody.
Sure. This story begins about 26 years ago with the tragic loss of my first wife, Debbie. Debbie was diagnosed with bipolar affective disorder 1 with rapid cycling. Terrible, absolutely terrible what she went through, and did the best that we could. She did the best that we could. We didn't have a lot of understanding in that day, not like we do now.
Yeah.
And it was really tragic. She ended up taking her life and left me in the home with 8 children. And 2 of those children had the same diagnosis, bipolar affective disorder 1 with rapid cycling. And, we did everything we could. We took them. I eventually remarried a wonderful lady named Barbara, and Barbara was really concerned and ended up in the psychiatric area, trying to get some help for my son Joseph, who was right out of control.
Mm.
He says of himself that he was everything that a schoolyard shooting is made of. I'm not kidding you. He was that violent. In fact, he ended up with a federal weapons charge in his youth because of that violent tendency that came from the bipolar. Heavily medicated with lithium. My daughter Autumn was in and out of the psych wards like a second home, heavily medicated. In the final end of the story, for her story, before she actually saw a major metamorphosis, a major change in her life, she was on Haldol, Rivotril, Epivel, Ativan, and Cogentin. That's enough to knock down a horse.
Gee.
Seriously. I mean, it was so bad. I don't know how we made it through it. But, after spending so much time in the doctor's offices, I realized there's no answer here. I remember Barbara lined up a psychiatric visit at the University of Calgary with a very well-renowned researcher, psychiatrist, and she was active in the field, this lady. Wasn't Dr. Bonnie Kaplan. And I remember taking Joseph up there with Barbara and quizzing her, and she finally got fed up with my questions. She told me 3 times, look, you're not going to resolve this issue. He's not going to get better. We have to sedate him. And she was being very frank and honest. And she finally ask Barbara and Joseph to leave the room. And when the door closed, it was like a shotgun going off in my face. Mr. Stephan, what is it that you don't understand here? You're not getting this. Don't you understand? What you see is what you've got. You're not going to correct this. We're going to sedate him. I'm going to come up with cocktails, and we have to lay him low because, Mr. Stephan, you need to understand that he's your next suicide. You've already lost your father-in-law to a suicide. You've already lost your sweet wife. I'm sorry for what you're going through, but you better prepare for another suicide. And it just blew me away.
So that right there is what drove you to great lengths to find a better way to help your kids, because they already lost their mom. And now it's you and your second wife, and you're trying to give them a solution. So that's what drove you to such great lengths to find something that was going to help.
Oh, yeah. It was like getting hit over the head with a baseball bat. It woke. I'm sorry. I mean, I look back now and I just don't know how we did it.
Yeah.
It was so traumatizing. And it kicked me. It kicked me so hard. It put me on the floor. And I remember thinking, no, this can't be right. God wouldn't send, we hear about God is love, God is merciful. He is. I believe that. Yeah. I know it. Absolutely know it. Because that's the way this story worked out. But I couldn't believe that God would send his children to come here and suffer, because this is not an experience for somebody suffering like that, because they're not in control of their life. Their chemistry is ruling. That's the problem. You and I and Scott here are able to make self-direction on a daily basis. Yeah. A lot of these people do not. And so it was a terrifying experience, and it drove me to my knees, and I started asking the question, Lord, God, where are you? What happened? I've lost my wife. I lost my father-in-law. I love them. And now I'm going to lose my son. And it was interesting because over a 2-year period, people started coming into my life that had little pieces of the puzzle. And we started to assemble that. It started to come together. And it basically had the word nutrition across it. We did everything. We tried everything. And what an interesting experience. It was like we were being led to find, and you look at Empower Plus, that's what came out of the blender 2 years later. And we saw an amazing change in Joseph. I remember his principal phoning me up and saying, what are you doing? He's not fighting anymore in the school. He's not harassing the teachers. They're telling me he's doing his homework and he's actually achieving scholastically. He's getting some marks. What did you do? Well, it was this wonderful concoction that we put together. And no, it was not commercially available at that time. And then we put Autumn on it. We saw the same thing. I mean, within 45 days, she's off of 4 of the medications that she's on. Actually, the first week I took 3 off because she was so over medicated. And I'm going to say this. We always hear this. Don't do this at home. Yeah. If you need help, we can get help for you, but don't just go out there and drop meds and do silly things and end up in the psych ward again. But, all of a sudden I've got these 2 children and they're normal. And this principal sending people from all over this little town that we're in, Mr. Stephan, I heard that your son was really ill and my wife has severe depression. Do you think this would work for her? I'm not sure. He had bipolar. Let's try it. And it worked. And the man down the street that phoned me, I heard at the Handicap Society that you have an answer for schizophrenia. No, I don't. No, I don't. But didn't your son, wasn't he really in a bad way? I said, yeah. Well, my wife has had schizophrenia, and I've looked after her for the last 8 years. The only reason she gets up is to go to the bathroom, or I feed her. And she says there are serpents in the room all the time trying to bite her, and bugs crawling on her skin. I mean, this poor woman was so ill. And all of a sudden, she's volunteering in the cafeteria at the hospital, and she's becoming absolutely normal. These are the miracles that we saw because of this nutrient supplement that came together. And it was just absolutely, wow. I became a true believer in God because my prayers were answered. I got my kids back, and I started to see hundreds of people coming around. And that's the beginning of the True Hope story. And we named it True Hope because there only is one true hope, and that's found in God. And I say that, and I'm not ashamed to say that, because this thing has been around for 26 years. Hundreds of thousands of people have been made well. Hundreds of thousands of people no longer require psychiatric medication or intervention. They got their lives back. They're back with their spouses, back in their marriages, their relationships. They're back in their scholastic pursuits in the university or their careers. And this is what we saw. It's called restoration.
And all because you said there has to be a better way, and you all the things connected in order to show micronutrients, being nourished and with micronutrients, were solving the issues with your two kids. And then the community was then discovering that these micronutrients also were having an impact for them too.
Exactly. And entering then came Dr. Bonnie Kaplan. You held up her book, The Better Brain, her and Julia Ruckridge. Wonderful, wonderful ladies. I mean, they have done an amazing thing here.
That's when they started, when they met you and Autumn, that's when Dr. Bonnie started to really take note and wanted to study. And I think she began publishing studies, was it 2001? With your micronutrients, this combination of broad spectrum nutrients. And people, I mean, they didn't only get well, they just stayed well. They got well and they stayed well. And I think that's one of the things that's so interesting, without any horrendous side effects like what you were seeing with the psychotropic medications. So I want you to tell us why does this broad spectrum blend of micronutrients work? What makes it work?
Well, it's really simple. We didn't understand at the front end. Now that's the amazing thing. Why did we put phenylalanine, an amino acid, in there? Why did we put glutamine? We didn't. I know this is going to sound weird to you. We didn't know. We just had feelings as we looked at these different components. This feels good. And it wasn't until after that the science bore this thing out. Just an interesting experience. I mean, I remember when we met Bonnie the first time, she was very, very skeptical. Like we were seen as snake oil salesmen. And like I said to her, we're not selling anything. You know, she's a sweetheart. But I'll tell you what, you can't hoodwink Dr. Bonnie Kaplan. I remember she had a poster on her wall, and it had a drawing of Moses with the 10 Commandments, the tablet. And it said, oh, gee, just a minute. How did that go? Moses is holding the tablet. In God we trust. All others must have data. And that's the way she was.
But
seriously.
See, that's how she operates. It's got to be proven. And your story in Autumn, it's like, okay, there's proof right in front of me, but will it work for all these other people? And I know that balance and ratios are a part of it. Replicating nature is a part of how you've done this. It's not a magic pill. I realize that, but I think one of the things I learned is that the body, this blend, the body is solving the
Well,
issues with micronutrients. It's a tool. They're tools that,
exactly. You look at the University of Kyoto in Japan, years and years after this thing came together. They did the genome research and they studied the brain mapping of the various neurotransmitters that are produced in the body. We produce them. We are a manufacturing plant. We make niacinamide. Did you know that? We actually produce niacin. We make it. Yes, if our body's working properly. And in order to produce serotonin, which is the natural antidepressant and also driver of the bowel, that's what makes our bowel work. There's more serotonin in the bowel than there is in the brain. In order to produce that, we take iron, we combine it with an enzymatic action with pyridoxal phosphate, vitamin B. It's a B vitamin, and our body creates serotonin. Well, what happens if you're deficient in iron? What happens if you're taking an iron supplement, which is basically iron oxide? That's rust. We don't do well. We can't utilize that. And so we learned how a tomato plant works. Look, a tomato and, well, broccoli, whatever, corn, whatever we're growing has to take nutrition out of the soil, elemental minerals, those are elements like calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, zinc, whatever, and it has to convert them to an organic composite.
Yeah.
And it does that. It does it very well. And then it feeds the fruit of the vine, you see, grapes or whatever. Well, how does that work when we take supplements that are composed of elemental iron, elemental zinc, elemental calcium? It doesn't.
Right.
We flush it. We might get 5 to 10, 15% out of that. That's it. So we learned how tomato works, and we put this product through a 96-hour process. Nobody else that we know is doing it. We've never heard of anybody that's doing this. And we learned, and we keep that a secret, on exactly how that process works. So it goes for a 96-hour process. And because of that, all those elemental minerals that are useless to the body or close to being useless are converted to an organic form. And people say, well, you're just chelating. No, we're not. It's so far above that. It's a light year away from that. And then we process the minerals and they're blended with the vitamins and away we go. The average, I'm not here to criticize, condemn, or, do anything.
No, we know that. We know that. Yeah.
But the interesting thing is the average vitamin mineral supplement on the store shelves takes 3 to 5 hours, and it's in the bottle. It takes us 96 hours before it's even the bottle, before it even gets to the bottle. And
that's because of the process of the way, so that now the formula can be immediate uptake and 100% absorbed. That it makes it such that those minerals can be shrunk.
Yeah.
And the ratios work, and the ratios that you have a specific balance and ratios in order to replicate nature in your products.
Exactly.
The micronutrients.
We've tried thinking that we know more. It's an interesting thing. That's my reality, because I'm not a nutritionist. I was a power engineer, and my partner at that time was a hog feed salesman. I'm not kidding you.
But hog feed salesmen know about nutrition in animals.
Well, they do to a certain extent, but
Yeah.
he had never formulated anything. And all of a sudden we're putting this thing together. And then we realized after, because, it's interesting, man always puts his hand into the thing to try and adjust it. We were blessed to get that balance right the first time. There's been so very few little changes. It's more in the delivery system, not in the product itself. And the times that we tried to deviate, it didn't work. It didn't work. And we experimented. We did all this stuff. And we realized, wow, this is a real gift. This was an answer to prayer. And here we are. And it's working. And we're into 104 different countries. And Renova has been developed as a result of that as well. And Scott's with us today. He's the CEO of Renova. And now we're pushing it in other areas. And the reason why we push it is because we have a mission. And that mission is to never allow people to live like the Stephan family existed, in such dysfunction because of mental conditions. And the whole story wraps up in nutrition. Oh, that's impossible, is it? Our body utilizes nutrients to produce all of the neurochemistry to make this thing work. Every day we live because of nutrition. And we've seen the sad story over here in North America because our nutrition is so poor on the table. And
It
we
is
have
here too.
nothing. Yeah, there you go. Nothing but illness. The hospitals are full of people who are suffering with malnutrition. Oh, that's not malnutrition. That's sickness. Well, you got people like Linus Pauling that said that every dysfunction in the body could be played back to understand that it's a malnutritive issue. And I believe it. It's absolutely true.
Well,
I'll
and
never
I see with all the studies, I mean, there's decades, like you said, there's decades of studies that have been done on your broad spectrum micronutrient, that Dr. Bonnie and Dr. Julia talk about it in the book. They talk about macronutrients and why there's not, people aren't getting sufficient food, but they're not actually getting nourishing food because of the way things have happened in the environment. But I think one thing that I thought was interesting is the fact that it's your mission. It started out with your family in such a horrible situation. And a lot of the studies that they've done are on other mental health conditions, but that includes anger management, stress, ADHD, which is so common. So many different, anxiety, all sorts of different mental health conditions. But what we've been noticing, like the corporate clients I work with, the sport clients we work with, in a general population, we see that using your micronutrients with the formula that you have and this new delivery system, we find even for a 2-year-old, right? A 2-year-old can use the new delivery system because it's a matter of melting, not mixing.
Is it okay if I jump in?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Exactly. Look, uptake is everything. Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
We lost you a little bit there. Okay. Looks like is it my Wi-Fi struggling? No, I think I'm okay.
I think it was Tony's that was struggling, Scott.
Well, just real quick, Diane, you and I have been working together now for over 30 years.
We can hear you, Scott.
Okay, good. I was going to say, Diane and I have been working together now for over 30 years. And Tony, you and I have been working together now for over 10 years, believe it or not. Time has gone by.
Yeah, there you go.
10 years ago, I joined the mission of the Tony Stephan family to bring this to the world. And what happened to you and your family, Tony, was the catalyst, for what happened or what you did. But the result has been that we've shown that this is beneficial for anybody and everybody, no matter who they are. You don't have to have a mental illness to benefit from taking this nutritional product, because it reconnects those neurons in your brain. It provides the tools that your brain needs to function properly, and anybody and everybody can need it and use it. And so we just want to make sure that that message is loud and clear when people are looking at this and understanding that it's for everybody and anybody can use it and it benefits everybody. So
Yeah, and I think that's a huge point, Scott, because the corporate clients that are using it, I mean, and all of us that do use it, we don't have a condition or have not been diagnosed with the condition.
Right.
Although my husband, he has a condition, and we see it daily working for him, like daily.
sure.
But the general population, when you know, brain fog right now, big thing. People have brain fog. They need razor sharp focus. They're missing things by having a diet that's missing other things, so that this is the fill in the gap. They need the micronutrients, and this broad spectrum micronutrients that's been proven over and over and over. That's what we wanted people to hear. And Tony, we're going to have you back because there's some other questions that we have, but we wanted people to know you and really hear the story from you. So we so appreciate you being here. And we appreciate Scott being here, because without both of you, we wouldn't have these products to be able to get in the hands of people that really have been looking for something on a daily basis to fill in the gaps for their nutrition.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's been a real godsend. And
Well,
yes,
you have been for pushing and making sure that this type of product was going to be available. I mean, that God gave that to you, and we're so grateful for your gift.
Well, it's been a real blessing. I look back now and I see so many people whose lives have been changed. And you're right about this is for everybody. John Rady, Harvard psychiatrist, wrote a book called Shadow Syndromes. And those syndromes that are not diagnosed, that cause problems in our marriages, sleep deprivation, some anxiety. People are functional, but they don't feel good. And this product is for everybody. I take it every day. I don't have a mental condition. I wouldn't be ashamed to say that I had one, but it's been such a blessing for everybody that takes it. It really has.
Well, we're going to sign off for today, but we are going to have you back, and we thank you so much for your time today. Everybody, give Tony and Scott a big thank you for being on with us today.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for